Welcome back to another episode of the Crazy Stupid Marketing Show, the show where we talk about some of the crazy stupid stuff people do in marketing and how we cannot do that. But instead, we can do things that are true to us, true to our brand, and actually make us money. Wouldn't that be great if our marketing could actually make us money? And a lot of times I feel like we don't have these things because we're not looking for how can we have these things? And we get overwhelmed by a lot of nonsense on the internet. And all of a sudden we're convinced to do a bunch of things we didn't really want to do in the first place. And this is the place where we break all of that down and help you to see what really works for you and how can you turn it into something that works for your business. And today, so for those of you who have not seen the show before, welcome. For those of you who have seen the show before, welcome. This is a conversational show. So there's a few of us on the panel here today. We will be having a conversation with questions and ideas and perspectives and a whole bunch of things flying around. But you in the audience are also a participant in the conversation. And so if you have questions for a specific panelist or for all of the panelists, or you have an experience that you would like to share on our wonderful topic today, which is conversational marketing, then please pop it in the chat. So regardless of where you are listening to the stream, there is a fancy chat mechanism and you can put all your wonderful thoughts in there. We would love, love, love to hear your voice as part of our episode today. Because specifically today, we are talking about conversations. And conversations do not happen when one person is just shouting at another person. That is not what we're going to define as conversation today. When we talk about conversational marketing, we are talking about a two-way interaction. And we have a wonderful group of panelists joining us today with different backgrounds and different expertise in the marketing industry. Some in marketing, some not in marketing, but just good people who have good things who need to be heard as part of this conversation. And so we're here to talk about what can conversations really look like in marketing instead of just checking the box that you posted your social media post today and move on to the next thing. So let's learn a little bit more about our panelists before we do that. And before we do that, I should introduce myself because I always forget that people don't know me, maybe. Just assume I'm super famous and everybody knows who Tracy Borison is. I'm Tracy Borison. I'm the creator of the Crazy Stupid Marketing Show because I believe in authentic marketing, which by my definition is doing or saying what you would do or say when you would do or say it. And not because the Rockefeller Habits told you to or some podcast you follow tells you to, including this show, but that you are putting to the test your own ideas and you're doing what you would do. So that's why the show exists, and that's why I'm the host of it. Well, let's meet the rest of our panelists today. And if you're watching us live, please introduce yourself in the comments so we know that you're here as well. Let's start with you, Ben.
Well, thanks for having me back. You know, I love being part of this show. My name is Ben Baker. My company is Your Brand Marketing. I do something a little different. We work with large enterprise level companies, and we do communication inside of organizations. We help drive change, steer communication channels, mission, vision, values, culture, purpose. We start those conversations and drive them.
Conversations. You heard it here first, folks. Actually, I said it a whole bunch of times already. It's great to have you, as always, Ben. Ben is a regular on the show. If you haven't checked out any of the historic panel conversations, he's been on a few of them. Welcome back. And Rob. How about
Rob?
You?
Yeah, I'm Rob Gilbert. I'm the founder of Growth Habit, which is a community of purpose-driven coaches and consultants that are doing meaningful work. Since 2019, I've been lucky enough to have helped over 250 people in 15 different countries grow their business and grow their impact so that you can make money while making a difference.
And I'm very excited to hear how conversational marketing comes into play in that arena, because I think as we continue, we would, well, at least I would like to believe that more and more we are becoming impact driven and breaking down this perspective that it has to be like profits or impact, that we can have both. And marketing is a good place to start for that. So I'm super happy to have you in the conversation today, Rob. Marie-France.
Yeah. So thank you so much for having me. This is my first time being part of this beautiful panel. I'm based here in Paris, and I am a personal branding, let's say, strategist, expert, coach, whatever you want to call it. But I work with female entrepreneurs, global leaders, and speakers. And what I do with them is that I help them to build a compelling personal brand so they become magnetic to their ideal clients instead of them, chasing them, chasing those clients, and also attracting profitable business opportunities. And I do that through a holistic approach. I like to call it that way, meaning that you are your own personal brand, your own business card. This is my mantra, and I like to start from there.
Oh, this is a good business cards, man. You guys remember those? I think in a lot of networking events, people are still trying to give me business cards.
Yeah,
I would much rather my personality be my business card for sure.
Absolutely. Who better than yourself can embody your brand and deliver your message and get a sense of your personality, your vibe. No one better than you can do that.
But I still like writing names on the back of business cards and notes and going, where did I meet them from? And what did we talk about? Because that goes in one ear and out the other.
They use this with LinkedIn connections now. So like if someone sends me on LinkedIn, I immediately respond like, it was great to meet you at this event.
Absolutely. Yes. This is what I do. Actually, I connect during the event, and then we go back straight to LinkedIn, and then we nurture the conversation there.
So many options. I'm really excited to have you in the conversation today, Marie-France. And last but not least, Trista, welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you. It's my first time. I'm so excited to be here. But my name is Trista Greer. I am the CEO of For the Love of Marketing. I started it when I was 17 as a way to kind of pay for school. And 5 years later, here it is, growing and thriving, which is really awesome to hear. I work in the digital marketing space, and I work specifically with real estate agents. It's a full service digital marketing agency. We work on brand development, and how do they stick out and how do they thrive? Because there's a lot of real estate agents out there, and how do you make yourself different? And a lot of that comes down to your branding and how you have these conversations with individuals. But when it comes to conversational marketing, we call it social selling. But that's a lot of how our sales process is driven and made. It's through conversations and not assuming that you can help people, but asking and getting to understand them and what they're working with.
Okay, so Trista, you touch on something that I find very interesting in this conversational marketing component, which is the concept of social selling. And so I would love to open this up to the panel in terms of like people's your own perspective of social selling, but also what you think it is commonly misconstrued as. Because I mean, all of us have received those LinkedIn messages where people are just cold spamming you. And I think a lot of people consider that social selling. I would not consider it social selling. So I would love to hear the perspectives of the panel. So Trista, you brought it up. You get to go first.
Yeah, I'm really happy you brought that up, actually. We call it pitch slapping. When they kind of unconsensually come at you head on, they're strong, they're eager. Exactly. And they assume they have the solution for you without even actually introducing or getting to understand you. They're coming in and they're guessing. And we call it like sales malpractice. Just like how a doctor, they don't prescribe you something without asking you questions first. Salespeople, you have to ask questions. You have to have a conversation. And it's at the foundation of building a long-lasting relationship as a client as well. So it just helps you in the long run and the short term.
This is the thing I always think about it, is this concept of being social. And so I almost like, as much as I identify with the concept of social selling, I believe in being social first. And then should it happen that I come across somebody whose problem that I can solve, yes, okay, we can meander that into something else. But there's this like social component that comes first. And I think in my brain, very minimally, this is very related to my definition of conversational marketing because it comes first. So any other thoughts from the panel on this definition of social selling or the complexities behind it?
Well, my big pet peeve is that social media is not social.
Well, it can be social.
It can be, but
Most
it's
people
not.
aren't using it that way.
The 95 or 98% of people out there, it's a look at me type medium. It's one way. It's push marketing. It's look how wonderful I am. Look at the podcast I was on. Look at the award I just got. Look at the panel I was just on, and look how wonderful I am. And they don't even read the comments, let alone respond to the comments. How many people actually take the time to actually read through other people's social feed and actually comment and actually be part of the conversation instead of just, do a drive by and say, that's great. Oh, that's awesome. And they think that they're social selling. They think that they're being part of the social network. What they're doing is they're just trying to get their name in the conversation. It's yes, but instead of listening, seeing what the conversation's about, adding value, and letting other people see that you actually have something to say and that you're someone worth paying attention to.
I like that, because the analogy I often give to people is, imagine that you own a storefront on a cute and quaint downtown street, because I think people get it all messed up because it's through their phones or through their laptops. And then they take this broadcast media approach where they're just barfing their stuff, as you said, Ben, to just get their name out there. But if you imagine you got a cute shop on a downtown street, and the difference in your business between if you never interacted with the neighbors, you never went to the coffee shop next door, you didn't pop into the tailors when there was some BIA event, you just ignored it, versus you frequented the coffee shop all the time, you sent people to the florist. When someone was celebrating an anniversary, you were generously and genuinely celebrating them. You donated a prize to the BIA draw, and you were an active member of the community, and seeing it as an actual community versus circles and images and words online. It's just a different way to look at it, and you engage with it completely differently.
Yeah, absolutely. How about you, Marie-France? How do you see this as, like, when you're working with your clients in terms of how people maybe wrongfully assume how they can show up online?
Yeah, but for me, I think that social media is what you make of it. Like, it depends on your attention. I mean, if you use LinkedIn properly, it can be fantastic. It can be amazing. So it depends on where you are talking from, like the place where you're acting from, right? So it depends on your attention. If you place the client at the center of your intention, then it's a complete different game, right? Now you'll start building the conversation. Now you'll start nurturing the connection bound, right? So it all depends on your attention, really.
I totally agree with that. And I think a lot of times we go into marketing with tactics before intention. We want to make sure that we know how to post on LinkedIn, or we know how to post through our scheduling tool, or we have the podcast technology all set up. So I have my tactic ready, but I didn't really think about, why do I show up to have this conversation or to have this show? And if we just step back, and this is something I work with on my clients a lot, right? Is just go back to the beginning. Why are you here? And what do you want to talk about?
Absolutely.
And do you care about the people you engage with? Do you truly care, or is it just lip service?
I think that's a big one too, because I mean, it's interesting, and I would love to hear the rest of the panel's perspective on this too, is like, there comes to this point where tasks, and I think specifically sales and marketing tasks, get associated with the sale, right? So like, I need X amount of money today, which means I have to talk to X amount of people. And then all of a sudden, somewhere along the lines, I forgot that these people are people. And if they don't answer the phone, maybe it's because they're busy, or maybe it's because they had to take their grandma to the hospital, or there's a lot of mind gremlins that come into this. But I think at the end of the day, it's because we're so concerned about the transaction. Thoughts?
Absolutely. And we should be concerned about the conversation first, right? The connection, the bound first, before anything else. Because obviously we buy from people. Like, it's a people to people kind of game, right? So Yeah.
And
So
again, just like most things in marketing, sometimes you're not really playing a people to people game. Sometimes you're playing a bag of Doritos to people game, right? And so if you're like, you want to do a whole bunch of TV ads and digital ads to try and convince people that they're hungry and they should buy Doritos right now, okay, you got the budget, go ahead and do that. But the thing that's really interesting to me is when people who are actually like really selling themselves, so they're selling their age or they're selling their own expertise, that they just want to skip the whole relationship component of this. And there's, no matter who you are or what you do, like quite honestly, on this panel today, we have 3 personal branding experts of sorts, right? In different, with serving in different ways and doing different types of styles and with different types of people in different types of countries. But technically, you could say there's 3 of us on this call that directly compete with each other, or could directly compete with each other. But we don't directly compete with each other because we attract, when we be ourselves, we attract different people. And that's not I mean, to some degree, it's a numbers game. Like, I'm never going to be like, just sit and wait for somebody to find you on social media. No, I just go out and initiate conversation. But at the same time, this is not about like, you can't serve all people. I guess that's what I'm trying to say. None of us, no matter how great we are, can't serve all people, nor do we really want to, right?
Yeah, and that's why I think we're not competing at all, because we are all unique individuals, right? So if you start there, then it's we can't compete at all.
Well, that's how you stand out on a platform where there's a billion people and millions of other people that are doing something similar, is leaning into your uniqueness. Tracy, when you said, maybe you're trying to peddle a bag of Doritos, even with that, there's a reason why the big multinational corporations will employ spokespeople and famous people or whatever, because they're trying to replicate the human to human approach. And I'll sometimes joke with people that it's not just a circle with a smiling picture or whatever. Like that you said earlier, there's a person there. And you said, like, maybe with a sick grandma, someone who's had a fight with their partner, someone who's trying to be a good parent, someone who's trying to pay their bills, and just humanizing every one of those little circles you're seeing on your screen versus logging in and thinking, I'm going to come in and suck and siphon some leads out of this platform. Is just such a totally different approach.
Very true.
But I don't know about you guys, but that's exactly what I get spammed every single day. Every single day, there is somebody in my inbox that wants to give me some AI approach of how to run my social media. And they're sitting there and says, I can get you X number of leads. I can do this. I can do that. And the first thing that happens is those people go right to the round can. It's just, I came from a direct marketing world. I did millions of pieces of mail in the 90s and in the early 2000s, 50, 100,000 pieces a week. And it was a numbers game. You knew that 3 to 5% of the people that you mailed to were going to buy from you that week. It didn't mean that if you mailed the same list next week, that the same 3 to 5% of the people would buy from you. But it was just like, who are you going to get to pay attention to you at that particular moment in time? But the world has changed, and how we approach has changed, and people want to be treated like individuals and not just get the same offer as every single other person out there.
Well, and I think it kind of plays into that like response part of it too, right? We were talking about people just like post and don't even check the comments. I don't even know how many people commented on my post. And so it's one thing to say, okay, I'm going to share this because I think it has value to people. And sometimes it has lots of value to lots of people. And sometimes it has value to one person. And sometimes nobody sees it because the algorithm hates your post. But there's, again, the intention behind it of like, okay, maybe I'm not treating every single circle on LinkedIn as an individual when I write that post, but I'm thinking about an individual who's experiencing XYZ. But then as soon as someone comments on it, that person is a person, and now you are in the conversation, and this is now you're not just ignorable. And I would love to, like, I'd love to hear. I mean, all of us kind of work more so with like people doing like a one-on-one feedback type of mechanism. But I'd love to get everybody's thoughts on like the like corporate profiles versus personal profiles, because I think from a personal perspective, there's more of an intention to say like, oh, if somebody responds to my post, I want to respond back to them. Least of all, like the algorithm likes it, so like I will do that. But from a company business perspective, there is very little conversation that is happening on any given post, and I mean it's an opportunity for a conversation.
But I think that has a lot to do with the marketers that are doing it. I honestly think there are great company pages, and there are engaged company pages, and there's some company managers that are downright hysterical. And there's a lot of them that are flat as boards that say, this is the piece of information that I need to get out on Tuesday. And the piece of information goes out on Tuesday. And Wednesday is, this is the piece of information I need to get out on Wednesday. And the piece of information goes out. And a lot of it comes down to, is there any personality behind the company? Are they talking to a specific audience, or are they just sitting there going, we're going to, load up the shotgun, throw a couple shells in it, shoot randomly in the dark and hope for the best. And I think that we need to treat social media as a company the same way that we treat social media as a human being. In what we've been saying, in the end, we're talking to human beings with problems, with wants, with needs, with fears, with challenges and desires. And the question is, how do we respond to the people that care about us as much as we care about them, and allow the other people to either hang on or go somewhere else because you can't solve their problems?
And that's why I think that, personalization is so important when it comes to having a conversation, because having a conversation allows brands to have to put this personalization system in place, meaning that they have a chance to now explore their customers' needs. And then when you do that, you're able to have this personalization that they feel that they are acknowledged. They feel that they are, they are seen and they're heard, right? So personalization is such a big thing when it comes to having a conversation, and it's something brands should pay attention to, in my opinion.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And I think when we talk about conversational selling, there's like the big brands and there's the individuals that work with the big brands. So if you think of like Mark's commercial, that sells footwear, I think they have to individually find their why, as well as why they are passionate about the footwear that they are selling, right? Mark's can kind of tell you it, but it might be different from your perspective. And what resonates with you? Why did you pick this job? Why did you pick this role? There's a reason why you gravitated towards it. Do a bit of deep diving and try to articulate that. A lot of people are posting the canned content that they just get from their company. I believe, Ben, you were kind of talking about this as well. But there's nothing special to it. And everyone's doing the same thing. You're not, your brand, your authenticity, nothing shines through. So I think, like you were talking about, find your why. And, Simon Sinek, I believe is his name, who has a great TikTok or not TikTok and book about it. Yeah. Mm-hmm. But I think that's a great place to start.
But it's also empowering. Sorry, Rob, I'll cut you off. It's also empowering your people to be brand ambassadors. Exactly. And that's a huge thing that you have to be.
Absolutely. Brand advocacy, yeah, absolutely.
It's interesting because it's just the layers. I think of the bureaucracy that I've experienced as an employee, and I saw how great ideas turned into terrible ideas once the 17th person had to approve it and the 7-person committee had to reapprove. Like, it's just, versus someone who is working as an individual has the ability to be fast, to be nimble, to be creative. And yeah, the individuals that I work with sometimes struggle because they don't want to say anything that could possibly offend anyone, and they have to figure out what are they about. And as Trista's talking about their why, and then lining that up, and then they can make some action. But when you get, like, especially with Doritos, like, I don't know what their $1 billion cap is, how many countries they're in, how many employees. I think it's a PepsiCo brand, so now we're talking like as big as it gets. Like, how many different people get involved? So the personalization piece. And that's why we're seeing small brands, people that are coming up with, whether it's a t-shirt company, a razor company, or whatever, and they're taking a big chunk of market share because they are doing personalization. They're doing a unique approach. They are willing to go out on a limb and say, we're about this and we're not about that.
Yeah. We feel that they care. This notion of care is so essential. We need to feel that from brands.
Well, and I think it's because when a brand actually cares, you can feel that, right? I mean, and everybody has their own brands that they vibe with, right? And not all brands vibe with all people. And I always use the example of Apple because the Apple brand vibes with a lot of people, but the world would think it's most people, but it's still less than 50%. They're like way less. So it's just really interesting in that type of awareness to keep in mind that none of these huge brands, even the PepsiCos of the world, right? Like, I don't know, are they 50-50 with Coca-Cola? I would guess close. No, I don't know. Like, I don't drink soft drinks, so I don't know. But like, we don't even know. And I don't resonate with either of them, which is why I don't know. And to some degree, I don't care. But I do care. Also, I would say, like, none of those companies, including Apple, has ever tried to get me into a conversation about a thing. And I actually had this experience this past weekend because they had a Mother's Day market in my town. So every time there's a farmer's market, I go to it. It's just a rule. I love farmer's markets. And there was these ladies, 3 young ladies selling skincare stuff. And so they're like, I'll give you a sample. And I'm like, yeah, sure. I'm dry. I'll have a sample. But then they got talking about like pH levels of the skin and like all of these things. And it says to me, you're just talking about something that you're passionate about, right? I did not feel like they were trying to sell me something. They were talking about something that they loved. And if I was interested enough, I could join them in the conversation, or I could let them be the experts and just tell me what type of facial cream should I buy, which is what I ended up doing. But like, that was the first time I met them, but I felt like I was their friend. I felt like we were having a conversation. And this is why I think this power of conversational marketing is very much underappreciated, because I think people think a conversation has to take a long time. So let's talk about this next, the like length of time versus depth of investment that is available in a conversation versus other types of marketing. Who wants to go first?
Well, I think it's brands' responsibility to do the work beforehand and to understand what their brand is, what their values are, what their strengths are. They need to do the work first, and then it's easier for them to have a conversation and to target the right clients and to have the right conversation, right? So it's on brands to make sure that they have their values clear, their strengths clear. So they need to do the work before having the conversations, actually.
And that makes another aspect really great too, which is part of the fear with people starting to show up with a message online is, what are people going to say? What if there's nasty comments? What if there's blowback? And I know that's what some of the fear is in those bigger companies, but also as individuals. But if you're clear on who you are, what you're about, who you're for, who you're meant to serve, where the alignment is, then someone can say something and you'd be like, it's okay, because it's not for you. And it's not a personal attack. And it's not the end of the world. And it works for a big company and an individual who's trying to create impact.
Yeah. You also have to take a look and say, what mediums are you on? Are you on the right mediums? Are you where your customers are? Like, I spend an enormous amount of time podcasting. I've been podcasting for 11 years now. And it's the ongoing conversation. It's the catalog that makes it interesting. People come back to me because of the catalog. People. I've seen people go back 3, 4, 5 years in a podcast and find episodes that they, I shake my head and go, really, that one's still popular. And it's amazing to me because it enables people to find out not only who you are in the moment, but who you've been, who you are, and who you're going, which way you're going. And I think that's really what the conversation needs to be about. It's who are you over time, not who you are and what you've done for me immediately or what you're going to do for me right now.
I think that's a really big piece of the trust building factor, is that you have this consistency over time, right? So this is something I always find interesting about me, because I've spoken on a lot of podcasts. A lot of them are not marketing podcasts, but I'm always talking about authenticity. So I might be talking about authenticity on a parenting podcast, or I might be talking about authenticity on a transformation and education podcast. But at the end of the day, it's because I believe in authenticity. I happen to serve that way in marketing, but I have this belief system that exists, that permeates my entire life, not just the business that I'm doing. And I think that's another interesting component of it too, especially from the brand perspective, because as an entrepreneur, I'm not going to say it's easy to get to that, because there's all these stories that pile on top of you about how you're not and you should be this and blah, blah, blah. And it takes a while to break those away. But when you get into a company perspective, now, not only do you have multiple people with their own individual experience, and their own individual experience is unique, but I mean, I've worked with businesses where there's like one employee who's like the police, and they police everything, and then all of a sudden nothing goes out because everything is being policed, and you have no brand because nobody saw anything because it was so heavily policed. And there's that, I want to just say, like, permission, right? Like, without the permission to have that authentic experience with Trista, like you said, with like what you're selling, and be able to share that with people and start a conversation on it, and we get policed to the point where a conversation has to be started like this, then I'm just going to share this one quick story, and then I want to go to Trista, because I'd really love to hear too how specifically in the real estate arena, where a lot of people talk about numbers game, how this lives. But I remember working, like when I was still working in corporate, I used to sit right by the VP of sales. And I remember him having everybody into his office to brainstorm the sales script. And so they worked together to build this one sales script that none of them would actually say. So now we've just taken like all the authenticity out of all of this and created like a global average that doesn't sound like any of us. And we're all going to use that same script, because one of their things they were supposed to do was a KPI or whatever, performance challenge for the quarter or whatever, was to create a standardized script. So they did it, but to what benefit? My interpretation, they never had an authentic conversation whatsoever. And I don't think that works in sales, and I don't think it works in marketing either. So Trista, I'd love to hear about like how this plays specifically in the real estate arena in your experience.
Yeah. Well, sales and marketing have such synergy. They work together, and especially on a platform like LinkedIn, we consider it like a year-round 24/7 trade show, because a lot of people can understand a trade show. You have your marketing material there, and you have your salesperson. That is effectively what you have on LinkedIn as well. And people kind of underutilize its potential. And just like you said, real estate agents are very numbers driven. They are very data driven. And so therefore, I think my approach has become a bit more analytical to match with my customer personas. But I feel like a big misconception around social selling when it comes to realtors or just individual sales agents, it's that you have to be extroverted, and that because it's conversation and it's selling, those two things equal extroverted, loud, bubbly people. But that's not necessarily the case. And actually, maybe if you're an introvert, then this is where you will thrive, because you can have those conversations through text message, which might allow you to be more yourself and more authentic. But when it comes to how we work it with real estate agents, it's more about building a community, because we work with their brands and we work with only one real estate agent in their geographical area. So we can hyper focus in on that individual and give them a more niche attention and approach. But the goal of that is to also build a concrete community. You cannot do that if you're not putting all your attention into it, because like we've talked about, it takes a lot of time. And a part of that is just like how, I can't remember who it was mentioning it, but responding to the comments, liking other people that you follow. You're not ghosting and posting and running away. You're there for the long haul. You're liking their pictures with their dogs and their kids, and you're not just there when the time of the house is selling. It's being there consistent and showing up consistently as an individual sales agent, but also projecting somebody else's persona, if that helps at all.
I think so. And I'd love to hear, because I mean, we're kind of bouncing back and forth here between sales and marketing. And quite honestly, I believe in the digital age, these activities are the same. And so there's now a lot of fuzzying, that a lot of blurred lines that are existing in that arena. And so, well, we're talking a lot about sales, and I think people have that idea that sales is conversational, right? That I'm going to have a conversation with somebody at some point in order to sell something. I think a lot of times marketers assume that they are operating behind the scenes, right? That people don't see me, that I'm just creating images, or I'm just coordinating a trade show, or I'm just printing t-shirts, or I'm behind the scene. It's not me, it's the brand. It's not me, it's the brand. And from a marketing and sales integration perspective, I think that's very difficult, because if we have a marketing team that is not at all interested in, and maybe interested is the wrong word, but they're not at all set up for success to have conversations with people, and then we're supposed to be creating leads for sales, but these people have never had a conversation with anybody at organizations, so they don't have any real kind of trust. They might have filled in some gated content on the website at some point, but that does not mean very much. Let's be honest, we've all done it. It doesn't mean very much. Okay? Marketers love to say that's a qualified lead, and it's not, folks. If you take anything away from the show, please stop calling that a qualified lead.
But that's actually interesting, because it reminds me of the 4 agreements, actually, because you need to make sure that your words are impeccable. You need to make sure that you don't take things personally. Like when you have feedback from customers, you don't need to, you have to feel like it's not your fault. Like it's not you, the person, so you have to make sure that you don't take things personally. And of course you do your best that you can, and you bring value. And last but not least, it's not about you. So you need to get rid of your ego to start with. For me, that's the bare minimum when you want to start a genuine conversation with existing clients or potential clients, right? So now, I make a clear analogy here between the 4 agreements and having genuine conversations and make them work.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think marketing people should have to go out on sales calls, and I think they should have to go to trade shows. I don't think it should be optional. I think that they should be part of the team that goes out and actually talks to customers on a regular basis. I think they should sit in on customer experience calls, customer solutions calls, and actually get to know the customers. And I also think that sales should sit in on marketing meetings. I think that there's too much of a wall that's being built between sales and marketing, and it allows for them pointing at each other and say, it's your fault. And I think that if you had a vice president of sales and marketing that understood both and understand the symbiotic relationship between the two and how they enhance each other and how both of them should be interdependent, I think you'd have a far better, more effective company.
I like this because Tracy talked about the blurred lines between them and how it's hard to tell the line between them. And Ben, you're making a really good case that it should be integrated instead of the walls going up, because if I think about it from the perspective of what is sales, it is an enrollment. It is someone saying like, yes, I'm all the way in. Let's make it official. That is a point in time in a conversation. And that means the conversation needed to happen sooner. So when Tracy, you were talking about, well, you're not starting any conversation. So you're not. So yes, you need to be starting conversations and moving the conversations along so we can get to that point in the conversation when they say, yes, I'm willing to go on a date. Yes, I will kiss. Like I always love making the analogy to dating because they're just so interchangeable. And if I think about the way things have changed now, especially in the conversational world, marketers, I don't like the word, I don't use it much, but there's all these enrollments that happen. If I'm trying to get someone to click follow, to sign up, to download the freebie, to join the news, those are all sales. Those are all enrollments. And we task this with the marketing team and think that it's so separate. It's not. It is really one big continuum, and it starts from the moment that they discover you, and it ends when they say I'm in, but there's a hand raising moment, there's a I trust you with my email moment, there's all these things that need to happen along the way.
Yeah, the yeses, I call them.
Yeah.
Well, I think we need to think of, we need to think of sales as, as a way to serve, right? If you start there, like if you think of selling as a way to serve the client, then there's no ego, there's no nothing, right? There's only the customer's needs and interest. And if you stay on that line, then you're good, right? So I think selling is not a dirty word. We don't need to be afraid of it. We just need to think of it as, a way to serve. And then we start the conversation so I can see how I can serve you, how I can assist you and satisfy your needs, right? So
Yeah, I think that's huge, because I think that is a common conversation in sales, right? New people who are coming into sales, this is not about selling, this is about serving, this is about helping. I've had conversations with even some of my friends who will just be like, oh, I hate sales. And I'm like, but you love helping people. And they're like, yeah. And I'm like, well, just help people. Stop calling it sales. Just like, go help people. That's fine, right? Sometimes helping people has a fee associated with it. Sometimes you can do some stuff for free, and that's great too. But this is also the interesting thing, is I think even in, like, I'm an entrepreneur. I have a lot of friends who are entrepreneurs, and people still really keep this hard line in that, like, that's selling and that's happening, that's helping, and this is marketing. And I always think, like, what if, as you, I love how you say it, Marie-France, like, how can we serve from a marketing perspective? And are we even asking that? Like, this is just about serving. And if we took away these hard lines of marketing and sales, and we just said, this is what I do, I'm going to go out and serve people. A social media post can be in service. A conversation can be in service. An email list and newsletter subscription can be in service. But only if, coming back to something else you said, Marie-France, the intention, right? If our intention from the beginning is to be of service.
But our in-service needs to go beyond sales and marketing. It has to be part of the culture of the entire company.
100%.
The entire company has to be focused on, how do we serve our customers? How do we serve our prospects? How do we add value to the world that we live in? And when you do that, all of a sudden, finance picks up a phone and actually, makes things better, or contracts get solved a lot simpler, or customer experience are able to make decisions a lot simpler and make people's lives a lot better, because they know what the mandate is. And Zappos was phenomenal at that. Just taking a look at different people who sit there and say, there's no one in the company saying this is not my job. Everybody in the job says the customer is my job. And it's my job to pick up the phone and my job to solve problems.
And sometimes, even in the words, when you say, how can I help you? Or when you say, how can I serve you? There's a difference there. Because when you say, how can I help you? Sometimes, depending on the situation, of course, but the clients may hear, oh, this person is going to sell me something, right? But if you come up with, how can I serve you? How can I assist you? Then it's a totally different, atmosphere, right? And then suddenly you create a safe space for the potential clients to open up and, share, his concerns and pain points and everything. And then you're starting on a good foot for that conversation to nurture, to foster and grow.
Yeah, I really appreciate that reframing in your mind from the word help to serve instead of sales or marketing. You have to believe it yourself for you to be able to articulate it. And if the word sales is holding you back because of maybe the association that you give it, reframing it as you are here to help will reflect in your results and the conversations you have, which just overall makes the conversation go better. So I really appreciate that point.
I love that we've gone to service, and Marie-France, you led us here, and Ben, you're giving all these examples that it has to permeate through the entire organization, because then people truly get incredible results. They're really happy. The likelihood that they come back, that they send a referral, that they renew, or whatever it is way higher. And then anything that is sales and marketing that we've been talking about becomes easier because they become evangelists, versus we've seen so many examples of people that get really good at the skills of marketing and sales, hype something up, sell something, and people are so disenfranchised, unhappy, and miserable. And then there is the negative version of referrals happening, kind of like the in against them. And you can make a quick buck once, but then your name and your reputation is tarnished. So this service approach, and that it's on everyone, not just the marketing and sales people, then everyone wins, and there's a compounding wind in your favor.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Well, a really interesting thing that you hint at with that piece, Rob, is this concept of referrals. Because how do referrals happen? Generally through a conversation.
Through a conversation.
Somebody's had a conversation and they
Very
mentioned
much
they had
so.
a need, and then you're like, oh, I had this person who helped me with that, or that person helped my sister and they did a really good job. That is also conversational marketing. And so a lot of times we talk about the power of getting testimonials or white papers or referrals and all of these things, and we track it against how many recommendations we have in our LinkedIn profile. And it's not that a LinkedIn recommendation is bad, but when that actually goes to market is when people have these experiences of you that it's like they can't help but share. And like, I thought this, and this person did this. And like, did you know, this is something I've been experiencing with my in-person networking events, is that people are like, oh my gosh, I've never experienced anything like this. Can I invite my friends? And I'm like, yes, please invite your friends, right? Like, that would be great. But
Yeah.
it's because of the experience that was created. And when we get into a conversation, we have the opportunity to create that memory with somebody, because I spent this time together with you. And maybe it's, I remember this, I was at a networking event, and this lady and I kind of just got to chatting, because when I'm in an in-person networking event, I will default to the person who's standing by themselves, because I'm by myself and they're by myself. So we should probably talk to each other. That's my strategy, not the right strategy, not everybody's strategy. But we had this conversation. It's probably like, I don't know, 10 minutes long, because you're kind of like cycling around the room. A week later, she got into this scenario with her living situation, and she was trying to find out somewhere new to live. So this is not a business related story, but it was a business function. And she messaged me and she was like, I don't know who else to talk to about this. And I was like, that's crazy that you can create that kind of relationship with somebody in 10 minutes. And I happen to have a very phenomenal network, and we did find her something, which was really cool. But like, there's so much potential that lives in a conversation. And if we turn off all of that potential because we want to talk about the number of transactions, then I feel like it's very short-sighted.
Well, let's take this to the next level and talk about conversations as stories, because stories are not only listened to, understood, and valued, but they're internalized, recalled, and retold. And that's what the power is. The power is not the fact that I tell the same story as Trista does, or Rob does, or Marie-France, or you do. It's the fact that I've personalized it.
Right.
I've sat there and said, okay, this is what it means to me. This is why I've connected with it. And this is why, you should know about this. And there's phenomenal stories that I tell, from the stage all the time. And the stories are meant to give lessons. And it's all about sitting there going, this is what I saw. This is what I learned. This is what you should know. And that gives people to sit there and go, oh, okay, I can see myself in those shoes. I can see myself in this exact same situation. And hey, wait a second, I hadn't thought of that before, but that's a neat way of looking at this. And that's what expands the conversation. And I think that when we take conversations and turn them into the stories, we have a great way to propel that information on a much larger basis.
Absolutely true, because stories appeal to emotions, right? And so as human beings, we need, that's how we function, right? We build on, on emotions.
And the connection
That's
that
and
it allows
trust.
space for us to realize that we have something in common with somebody, so we can build that connection, and then it creates very minimally an opportunity to continue building on that. That can only take us to good places.
And also, Tracy, you talked about the customer experience, which is so big right now, like for brands or even for as an entrepreneur. The how your ability to create a genuine customer experience is huge, and you do that through having genuine conversations, because you want to know how they felt as they worked with you, right? And so you need to get that feedback. You need to get those impressions so that you can improve the customer experience. That's really something that brands have to work on, I believe. Making sure that they have the best customer experience that they can get.
Yeah, and that I would say the most authentic, right? Because best, I think, is tricky, because you can end up judging yourself against somebody else. But when you have that,
but then also, authentic, it's such a overused word. I mean, we hear authenticity, like million times a day. So I think we need to also, I don't know. I mean, that's a whole new story. That's
the most you version of your experience.
Of course, it's to have a genuine and true and real customer experience. Of course, yes.
Yeah, for me, it's when you're saying and doing matches what you're thinking and feeling. Because we've been in those scenarios where someone is saying the right things, but we feel off about them, and it's because their actions and their words don't match what they're really thinking and feeling internally. And that is what authenticity is. And people talk and use the word all the time online. And I'm lucky enough to see behind the scenes, and I have clients who are doing very well and have prosperous businesses, but then I chat with them personally and I'm like, this feels off. You're projecting this bullshit online, but here I know what's really going on. And yeah, what you're saying and doing is matching what you're thinking and feeling. That's authenticity.
I love that definition. And I just want to say too, a quick thing about stories, because while it is amazing to have those big kind of epic stories where people can follow you and they can also learn something and those types of things, I found like so many conversations start off with something seemingly innocuous. Before we came on live today, Trista was asking me about the beta fish that I got Nicholas for his birthday, because that's what we talked about in our conversation, and it didn't end up happening. And there's a whole story with it, but probably Trista doesn't talk to everybody about beta fish as birthday presents, right? Probably. Now, maybe there's a handful of people. I've talked to 2 people in my whole networking history about beta fish, and I know which 2 of them they are, because that's a unique experience that I've had with that person. And I also think there's a power in, I'm thinking of a post that Rob did actually, where he was raising everybody on their cold plunge and he did a snow swim, like a snow. Yeah. And I was just like, that's a hard no. Like, I no, I will not be doing that. But good job, you. But even in that, right? So it's not that we're the same on that, but that there's like something in that experience that's been created that's memorable. And a lot of those times, I think from a like starting the conversation point of view, we put so much pressure on like having a quality opener, or I have to have this kind of powerful social media post. And so many times it's just, like I said, something seemingly innocuous to ourselves, where people are like, yes, I'm with you on that. And you're like, okay, great, let's go together.
The commonality.
Oh, go, Marie, go for it. Go.
No, I was just saying the commonality, like trying to find a common point that we have together. It's a great way to start a conversation. Oh, I saw you also, went to, I don't know, Brazil. Like, what did you get from there? And it's a great way to start building the conversation on an authentic note, and on a more like we're the same person kind of note, trying to
It's
find
like when
something.
people look at my background and they can tell that that's Loki, and I'm like, okay, we can be friends. Because not everybody can tell that that's Loki. Some people thought it's elves. Some people
but I
don't even try to
remember
guess.
I got a client one day because she saw like a sculpture in the background while we were doing like a Zoom, where we were having a Zoom conversation, and she was like, "Oh my God, I love this dog. This is from this artist. I love it. Blah blah blah. I went to Paris one time, and and we start from there, right? It was like far away from selling, from my offer, but it was about trying to find common thing that we both love. And actually we ended up working together, and it was a great customer experience for her. So the starting point was just something that we had in common.
And Trista, I'd love to go back to you on this, because I do think there's lots of industries, including real estate, where people might think like, well, unless someone needs to buy or sell a house right now, then like, what's the point of me building a relationship with them? And I think it's very clear that that might be the case in real estate, but there are other industries where I'm guessing people feel that too. Like, what's the value if they don't have the need? So I'd just love to hear your perspective on that as we wrap up.
Yes, of course, 100%. When it comes to sales and research and marketing, people have more ability to go and look you up than ever. They have more ability to learn knowledge about the industry so that they're not blindsided when they go into a conversation. People are doing their research before they even reach out to you to have that initial conversation. If there is nothing on your social media or your presence, then they are getting nothing from you, right? So they're going to go to the next person that does have more information and is more consistent. So when it comes to that idea of conversational selling, you can still have that conversation without having to directly speak with someone. And I believe you mentioned earlier, you're writing this post and you're thinking of someone. So you know it's going to resonate with one person out there, and likely another person is in a similar situation. So being that consistentness will bring forth that individual when they are ready. And being always there and present will always just be a friendly reminder that you are there. You can, you humanize yourself. A lot of real estate agents, it's just a lot of, hey, here's my headshot. What's you? We work with someone who's family first. Awesome. Then let's embed that into your brand. Let's see your family. If you want to work with family, show us yours. Show us your dog, show us your kids. Humanize you, the things that people can relate to. Because nobody wants to work with somebody who's just about real estate, because everybody has more to themselves than just their job or what they do for a living. And letting people see that, it shows, you're authentic, your best self, whatever, is truly you, and bringing that to the surface is really important.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, we just sold a property, and we didn't go for the best realtor in the neighborhood or the number one realtor in Richmond. We went with somebody that we knew, like, and trust. Somebody that we've known for a long time, that we had a relationship with, that we know from the street, that we've had
From
barbecues in their backyard. Actually, it's one of my neighbors. But there's 15 realtor. I could not swing a cat in my neighborhood without running into a realtor. I swear I can't.
I think most.
But the thing is that there's certain ones that we like and that we trust, and we would have put their name in the hat. And there's ones that we would never do business with because, quite honestly, we don't like them as human beings. It's not that they're horrible human beings. It's just that we have different personalities. And, so the process of selling the house, by the time we were ready to actually put it on the market and figure out a realtor, we already knew who we were going to work with. We weren't interviewing realtors. We weren't, it wasn't whether you were 2.5% or 2.6%. It wasn't the fact that you've sold so many houses in the last 90 days. It was, there was a basis of communication. There was a basis of conversation, and there was a matter of trust. And because honestly, it's an emotion, for the amount of money you're selling and buying a place for, it's all about emotion. People buy on emotion. They don't buy when it comes down to statistics. They buy on emotion.
Agree 100%, Ben. Sorry, Tracy, but I would rather work with a real estate that is going to buy me, to sell me the happiness and the family life that I'm going to have inside the house, rather than, I'm selling you the house. Don't sell me the house. I'm not buying the actual house, actually. I'm buying the happiness, the moments that we're going to have as a family inside the house.
Exactly.
That's totally different.
Or even like with your realtor, because personally I have a really amazing realtor that we just like ended up getting connected with because we went to an open house, and then the lady was like, well, I can't sell and buy the same house, so I'll connect you with this coworker of mine. She worked with us for 4 years before we bought and sold our houses, and it was like we we went to client appreciation events and all of these things because she is like cared about the people and like helping the people get what they needed when they need it. And now we recommend her to everybody, and we live in a completely different town, and we used her anyway. Right. And it was great. And unfortunately we have lost Rob because we have gone over on our time for today, which is not surprising because this is the Crazy Stupid Marketing Show and we always do that. But I think the last point I wanted to make on that was that these are the experiences. This is how we choose the people we do business with, which means that's how people choose us as well. And so we're not choosing all of the realtors, and you have your own reason for picking the realtor you like, or the coffee shop you go to, or what have you. Like, I only like to go to my local Starbucks when the manager is there, because when the manager is there, I know that everything is running tickety-boo. And if he's not there, everything is going to be a disaster. But like, that's because that person has built that trust with me. And it's not every human builds trust the same way, but we all know that we buy this way. So it's important to remember that then when we're responsible for the selling, or we're responsible for the conversational marketing component of that, what do we want to show up and build a relationship on, build a conversation on, so that when either that person's ready to do what we do, or that person never will be, but they know people who might be, that I'm going to be the person that they recommend. And not because I'm trying to be devious and manipulative because that doesn't actually help you be memorable. And an experience where you have connected with another human, made them feel something, is what makes you feel memorable. So I would just say, as we wrap up today, folks, that this is what conversational marketing offers. It offers you the ability to be memorable in the way that you choose to be memorable, in the way that you are naturally memorable. And it's a great, great door for opening future conversations. Ben, Trista, Marie-France, I'm going to quickly go around, and if you can share, I know Rob would have said connect with him on LinkedIn. He's been tagged on the post, so connect with him on LinkedIn. Tell him you saw him on the show, and feel free to connect. So Ben, Trista, Marie-France, where in that order? Where's the best place to find you?
You know what? If you go to my website, you're going to find everything. The yourbrandmarketing.com. It's a link to my social media. It's a link to, a free 30-minute conversation over Zoom. It's got all my ebooks. Everything is right there. So go to yourbrandmarketing.com.
I love it. Digestible, Ben. Yeah, find me on LinkedIn. I love LinkedIn. So just connect with me there.
Awesome. Marie-France.
Yeah, same for me. Find me on LinkedIn, and actually, I posted. I shared a post today about networking and branding, and my mantra, which is you are your best business card. So you go there, and you'll have the explanation of what it means to be your best business card, right? So it's all about you as a brand, and you showcasing your brand, and giving your potential client what it's like, a sense of what it's like to work with you. So go to LinkedIn, and you have everything there.
Thank you all so much for sharing all of your wonderful expertise today. And for those of you who are in the audience, who I can see are in the audience but didn't comment today, I don't know who you are, but thank you for being here. And just like any of these conversations, the topic today, as you can see, because we went way over our time allotment, is that there's a lot to talk about in these arenas, which is what we do on the Crazy Stupid Marketing Show. We're here to open cans of worms into marketing conversations that other people are not having. But these are not conversations where you can just come for 60 minutes and get all the answers and peace out and never have to think about it again. These are things that if it is your intention to create more conversation, more authenticity in your marketing efforts, in your sales and marketing integration, wherever, then these are the people who are in the conversation. This is also why it's good to get in the chat, you guys, because then you see the other people who are in the conversation and you can connect with them too. You missed your chance for today, but you can also watch the replay and put your name in the chat if you want to. But stay in the conversation about conversational marketing and what that looks like for you and what that feels like for you. And you might have to try on a couple of different things until you find something that works for you, but it is worth the fitting room trauma to try on things until you find what fits. So come back to the Crazy Stupid Marketing Show. You can find us on YouTube as well if you look for Crazy Stupid Marketing Show. And unfortunately, we will not be having any live episodes for the month of May because fortunately, I'm going to be on vacation. So you can hit up the archives for the month of May. I've got them scheduled to pop up in the feed so you guys can check them out on some of the most popular episodes. But stay in the conversation. And if you want to be in the conversation about conversational marketing, don't let this be the last conversation. And with that, everybody, thanks again to our wonderful panelists today. Thanks for watching. And until next time, permission to do you.